Hi there, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create your own Chia Watchdog using Powershell, and this will allow you to get regular updates on how your farm is doing. Now this Chia Watchdog will be pretty basic and will send notifications to both Windows and Discord. However, the code should be easily modifiable to allow other integrations. So if we go ahead and hit enter to get an example of what you'll get, you can see that we get a toast notification down here with a little bit of a summary of how our harvester is doing, along with a notification in Discord. Now what does this notification tell us? Well, it gives us the total number of attempted proofs since our previous notification, and it also gives us the lookup times of proofs with the minimum, the maximum, and the average. Now we want these to be definitely below 30 seconds, but we really want them to be below 5 seconds. It also gives us the filter ratio, which should be around 0.0019, and it gives you how many proofs you found, if any. Now I am going to show you how you can also add notifications to whenever you do farm blocks, but if you also want a full-fledged notification system, I do recommend checking out Chia Watchdog. Now I have not personally used this, but it does look to be very good and well thought out, so you might want to give that a try, and I might do a video on this in the future. However, it is pretty simple to set up your own Chia Watchdog using PowerShell, and I will be placing all the scripts you create in this repository, and you'll find this in the description of the video. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that the Chia log level is set to information, because by default it is not. Now you can do this directly in PowerShell by running these two commands, and this will basically place you in the directory where the Chia executable lives. Now the next thing that you want to do is type out chia.exe configure-log-level and then info. And here you can see that the log level was updated. However, you will need to restart any services for it to take effect. Now in order to just double check that the log level was updated, you can type out notepad and then the path to the config file. This will open it up in Notepad. I have it open up in Notepad++, and then under the farmer's information and under logging, you can see that the log level is set to info. You can also change where these log files actually get created by changing the log file name right here. Now you might want to do this for your harvesters where it's set to a network shared location so you can access these files from your full node. So in my case, I'm just going to do a demonstration and have it saved to this file path. So let me go click save and start my Chia application. After the Chia application started, you can see that the debug file got created in the new file location that I specified in the config file. You can see that it's being updated regularly. Now I don't recommend changing this file location on your full node, only change it if you have a very specific purpose in doing so. Now that we have the log level set to information, the next thing that we want to do is parse the log file. However, if you open up the log file, you can see that there's a bunch of noise with information that we don't necessarily need. But there is information like this harvester information that tells us the number of eligible plots, the number of proofs found, and the lookup time. And we can use this information to generate a report of how our harvester is doing. There are also logs that will tell you whether or not you actually farmed a block, as you can see right here, and we can use this to also generate notifications. So let's go ahead and start writing the scripts that will parse these log files and generate these notifications. Now you can either use PowerShell ISE or VS Code to write these scripts. Just to get started, let's go ahead and check out the Chia Wiki, the page how to check if everything is working or not. If you scroll down on this page, you actually find some PowerShell commands to help you parse these log files for the information that we want. And up here you can actually see that they tell you that the proof challenge should take 30 seconds or less, which is what I mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and break down what this command does. So we're getting all the information out of the debug log file, and we're also doing the -wait parameter, which will basically keep looking at the log file, and every time it's updated, we'll also get that information. And then it pipes all this to the select string command, and it only grabs the lines in this file that have the word found in it. So let's go ahead and copy this and paste it into PowerShell. And you can see that it does just that. It only grabs the lines in the log file that have the word found in it. And you can see that once it reads the log file that was written to up to that point, it then waits and then updates it every time it's written to. Now, even this is not perfect because we have an entire string right here, and really we want to break this down even more so we can generate reports. Now we can parse each one of these strings by using something called regular expressions, or regex. So let's go ahead and copy this string and then paste it into the start of our scripting file. So let me go to VS Code, and then let's store this into a variable called Chia harvester log, and then do double quotes and then close it in there. Now basically what we need to do is identify the parts of the string that are static or will not change, and the parts that are dynamic and will change. So we know that this part right here that is basically a timestamp will change. So let's go ahead and turn this part of the string into a regular expression so that even if it changes, we're able to still grab this entire line. Now I won't be going into regular expression in detail. However, if you do want to learn more information, you can check out this website or the About Regular Expressions for the Powershell. Luckily for us, the regular expressions that we need to create are very simple. So let's go back to our script file, and then in order to turn this timestamp into a regular expression, we first need to look at the characters that make it up. So here we can see that there's a bunch of numbers that can be from 0 to 9. We also have a dash, and we have the letter T right here, a colon, and a dot. So we basically need to tell the regular expression that if we have any number of these characters in any order, then this is valid. So let's go ahead and delete this, and we'll be putting our regular expression in parentheses. Now we want to tell our regular expressions of the characters that we want by putting those in square braces. So we want any characters between 0 and 9. We want colons, dots. In order to do the dash character, we need to do a backslash and then dash, and then the capital letter T. And then after the closing square brace, we're going to want to put an asterisk to tell it that we want any number of these characters. So let's go ahead and copy the first part of this string, leaving off the other variable parts, and then pasting this in PowerShell and seeing if it still works. So let's close out these double quotes, and then let's run the same command that we did earlier, but replace it with the regular expression that we have now. So Chia harvester log. And here you can see that it still is able to parse the log even though that we have different timestamps for each one. Now you might be asking, why did we just make this more complicated than it needs to be? Because we're getting the same output as we did before. However, whenever we combine this with the switch function, it actually saves this regular expression that we created in a variable. That way we can access it later. So we're going to be doing this for each dynamic character or string in this string, and each one of these will be saved to that variable as well, so we can access them. So let's go ahead and go back to our script and update it with more regular. Now after the timestamp, we can see the string that probably will not change, so we don't really need to turn this into a regular expression. However, there is 5 white spaces right here, and just to be safe, we can turn this into any number of white spaces by doing a dash or backslash s and then an asterisk to indicate any number of white spaces. The next thing that we have is the number of eligible plots for farming. Now we definitely want this to be a regular expression, so let's do parentheses and then square braces and then do any number between 0 and 9. Now you could have a lot of eligible plots, so let's go ahead and do an asterisk to allow more than one number. Now the next part of the string that could change is this part right here. So we have numbers, we have letters that are lowercase, and then we also have dots. So let's turn this into a regular expression as well by doing parentheses and then square braces, and then so we have all the letters A through Z lowercase, and then all numbers 0 through 9, and then also dots, and then we want to do an asterisk right here as well. Now we have 3 more regular expressions that we need to create. The first of those 3 is the total number of proofs found, so we're going to do parentheses and then 0 through 9. And then just in case you have a crazy number of proofs found, let's do an asterisk. And then here you can see that we just have numbers as well, including a dot. So let's do parentheses 0-9, dot, and asterisk. And then the last one is going to be our total plots. And these are just numbers, so parentheses 0 through 9 and asterisk again. Now you might be thinking that this is ready to go. However, we have a single character in here that will actually mess up our pattern, and that is the new line character that is right here. So let's go ahead and take that away, and now we should be good to go. So let's copy this entire line and paste it into PowerShell and give it a test. So if we paste this into PowerShell and then run the same command that we did before, we can see that the new regular expressions are working and everything is in order. So let's go ahead and go back to our script file and move on to the next step of our script. So the next thing that we're going to do is something that we've actually already done, which is get the contents of the log file. So we're going to do get content dash path, and then the path to the log file, which is going to be environmental variable user profile /chia mainnet log, and then debug.log. Now I'm going to enclose these in double quotes. Now, instead of piping this to select string like we did before, we're actually going to pipe it to a command like called for each object, and then do a script block after that. So basically every string in the log file is going to be sent to this for each object commandlet, and then all the commands in this script block are going to be ran against that string. So we haven't done any filtering of the strings that are coming down the pipeline, so we need to do that in the script block. And instead of using the select string with a pattern, we're going to be using something called a switch statement. To quickly go over what a switch statement is and how to use it, let's go ahead and go to the Powershell page about it. And I'll post this in the description below as well. So you can think of a switch statement as a bunch of if-else statements. So you have the variable, in our case is going to be the string coming from the log file, and then you're basically testing that with a bunch of conditionals. So if this condition is met, or if our regular expression is met, then perform this action. So this will allow us to have a bunch of regular expressions for, let's say, the harvester, or if we farmed a block, or if you added or removed coins in one switch statement, and then have a different action based on those values. So here you can see that the value 3 will output it's 3 if this switch statement is met. So let's go ahead and do that in our script. So since we are using a regular expression, we're going to want to do -regx, and then here we're going to put in our variable, which is going to be the current thing in the pipeline, and we get that by doing $_. The next thing we want to do is a curly braces, and then we're going to have a bunch of conditional. So in our case, it's going to be our Chia harvester log, and then we're going to want to indicate what our action is going to be by enclosing that in curly braces. Now, to just see if the switch statement is working as expected, let's just have it output the string if it meets this conditional. So let's go ahead and copy this right here and then paste it into PowerShell and see if it works. And here you can see that it's working exactly as expected. Now here is where I get to show you why we're using a switch statement and why we're using regular expression. So there's an automatic variable in PowerShell called matches that gets automatically populated whenever you use the switch statement with regx. So if we click enter, we can see that all the regular expressions that we had in our string is actually stored in this variable. So the first regular expression is our date, which can be found right here. Here's the eligible plots. This is one that we don't really need, but we're just doing to make sure that we had all those lines. And then here is the proofs found, the time it took to look up the proofs, and the total number of plots. Now this matches variable is actually a hash table, and the way that we access these variables is by typing out the variable matches and then doing a square brace and then typing out basically the number that we see right here. So if you want to get this value, we type out the number right here, and then here you can see that we get the value by itself. So let's go ahead and use these values to create our own PowerShell custom objects in our script. Okay, so let's delete this right here, and to create a PowerShell custom object, you're going to do square braces, do PS custom object, and then after the closing square brace, you're going to do the @ symbol with curly braces. And now we're going to be defining the properties of this object. So the first property is going to be time, and then you're going to do equal signs and give it the value. So the value for this is going to be in the matches variable, and it's going to be in the location 1. The next property that we want to create is the eligible plots property, and that was in the matches variable as well, and that's going to be in position 2. And then after that was the lookup time. So we're going to do lookup time, and that was in the matches location 4, because we're skipping the one that's just the random letters and numbers. So after that will be the total number of proofs found. So we can type out proofs found and then do matches 5, And then the last one is going to be the total plots. So total plots matches 6. So let's go ahead and copy this new script into PowerShell and see what it outputs. And here you can see that we're getting a object rather than that string. So now we can actually use these values in a more practical manner. And it actually looks like I swapped the lookup time and the proofs found. So let me go ahead and fix that. So the proofs found should be 4, and then the lookup time should be 5. You also might have noticed that we just have the string for the time property instead of an actual date-time data type. So in order to turn this into a date-time data type, we can use the class called datetime, and then do the static method called parse, and then use this. So now if we copy this and run it again, we can see that the time property is now an actual date-time data type. Now, having each one of these records thrown at us one at a time in PowerShell is not exactly what we want. We really want to add them all together to create reports and then eventually use those reports to send us notifications. So let's go back to our script, and instead of just having it output to the console, let's save it to a variable called harvester activity, and then do the equal sign. And then let's export this object to a CSV file so that we can access it from another script that will actually generate the report and send notifications. So let's type out the variable again and pipe this to a command called export CSV, and let's give it a file path to the CSV file. Now I like to put files that I generate from scripts or PowerShell modules to the local app data folder. So I'm going to type out env local app data, and then I'm going to put it in a folder that we're going to create called Chia Watchdog, and then we're going to call this harvester summary log, and then with the extension CSV. Now we're going to want to put this in double quotes, and then we're going to want to add 2 parameters, one being no type information, so this will prevent it from adding some information at the top of the CSV, and also a pin so that it just adds to the CSV file and doesn't overwrite it. Now, no matter what path you choose to put this CSV file in, you probably want to make sure that the directory that contains it actually exists. So before the get content command, let's go ahead and just put in a check to make sure this directory exists, and if it doesn't exist, well, let's create that directory. So we're going to do an if statement, and we're going to do -not in front of the command that we're going to run, which is test path. And then we're basically just going to feed it the path of the directory that we're going to put the CSV file in, and then do curly braces to open up a script block in case this is false. So test path will return true if the path exists, so we want to return it true if it doesn't exist, which is why we have the -not. Now the way to create new folders in PowerShell is new item, give it the path that you want to create the new item, and give it the item type. In our case it's going to be directory, and then we're actually going to pipe this to out null so that it doesn't put anything into the console, because it actually does output an object and we don't really need that object. So let's go ahead and try to run this script again, and you'll quickly realize whenever you're writing scripts, you basically want to add one little piece of code, test it out, make sure it works, and then add another piece, and you basically create it line by line. So if we copy this and paste it into PowerShell, well, we're actually getting an error. So let's just read the error to see what happened. So it's basically saying that a parameter cannot be found. And here you can see that I used the wrong parameter. So this should actually be -path. Now I left in this little mistake in the video just to show you the process of creating scripts, because you are going to be running into errors quite a bit when developing scripts, and you have to kind of get used to that. So let's go ahead and try this again. And here you can see that nothing's being outputted because we're storing it in the harvester variable, and then we're exporting that to the CSV file. However, if we go to the location where that CSV file is being generated, and we go to the folder that was created and open this up, well, we can see that it is exporting all those PowerShell objects into the CSV file line by line. However, whenever we do have this file open, PowerShell can no longer access it. So you will start to see this erroring out whenever it tries to add new lines to it. Now you can also see for the get content commandlet, I forgot to add the wait parameter, which basically keeps this command looking at that log file for any updates. So we basically have the core of this script created. We can add more regex files for, let's say, Chia farmed block log, and then add the regex for that, and then add this to another conditional statement for the switch. So we would do Chia farm block log, and then add basically the same thing here. We'll create a PowerShell object and then export it to another CSV, but maybe with a different name, like farm blocks. In order to keep this very, very simple, I'm going to leave this out for now, and then go on to how to generate reports and send them through notifications. However, I will add those farm block lines to this script as well, and they will be posted on that GitHub, so you can see how those will work. So the next thing we want to do is create a script for the notification system. So let's go ahead and do a new file, and then let's call this one new Chia harvester let's do summary.ps1, and then here we're actually going to want to add parameters to this script. So let's do param, and then do parentheses, and some of the parameters that we want is maybe the path to the CSV. So let's do a string and do path, and then we probably just want to give it the default path that we gave here. So let's just copy that and give it the default path. And then we are also going to want to give it maybe the intervals that we want the notifications to be generated. So let's do integer and do interval, and then maybe do the default of 60. And we're going to make these intervals in minutes rather than seconds. And you are going to want to separate these parameters with commas. So the next parameter is going to be a switch parameter. So a switch parameter is basically you either turn it off or on. So if you indicate it, it will be turned on. So this will be our notification. So we can do toast notifications, and then let's do a switch parameter for Discord notifications. So that should take care of all the parameters for this script. Now we may want to actually validate that this path exists, so we can do validate script and then do test path, and then the $_ will give it the path given to this parameter. So let's go ahead and turn the 60 into seconds. So we can do interval and seconds, and then just do 60 times 60, and that will give us the number of seconds that we want. So for this, we're going to create basically an infinite loop, and the easiest way to do that is to do a while loop and just type out true. And then we're going to create a script block. So while true equals true, which is forever, it will run everything in this script block. Now the first thing that we want to do is basically generate the summary or the report for our Chia harvester summary. So we can do this by importing that CSV that we created with our previous script. So let's go ahead and type out a variable called harvester summary, and then let's make this equal to the contents of that CSV file. So we're going to do import CSV and give it the path to the path variable that we defined up here. Now the next part actually might not seem obvious at first, but we actually need to pipe all the objects from the CSV file to a for each command as well, and we basically need to make the time property a date time data type again. So we need to type out $_time and then make it equal to date time $time, and then output that so that it gets stored into the harvester summary. The reason why this is necessary is because whenever you export an object to a CSV file, the properties on that object don't retain their data types, so this date time data type will be lost whenever we import these objects again, which is why we have to force it onto it. The next thing that we want to do is basically only grab the attentive proofs from the last time that we create the summary, which will be created in regular intervals of 60 minutes. So we can do this by typing out the harvester summary variable and then piping it to where object. So this will basically act as a filter, and we're going to be filtering it based on the time variable. If the time variable is greater than the date time from 60 minutes ago, which we can do by doing get date, putting it in parentheses, and then using the method add minutes, and then basically subtracting the minutes of our interval variable. So this will basically grab only the attempted proofs that have the timestamp of a time from now, from 60 minutes ago. Now it's finally time to generate the report. So we really only want to generate the report if this variable has any data in it. So if we do if harvester summary, this will report true if basically it's not null. So if we have objects in this variable, well then everything in this script block will be ran. So the first thing that we want to do is grab the lookup time for each event and then kind of get the minimum, the maximum, and the average. And we'll store all this in a variable called lookup stats and do the equals. And basically we're going to pipe each object in this variable. And now thinking about it, we should probably change this variable to harvester events rather than summary, since that makes a little bit more sense. And so we're going to pipe each object in the harvester events variable to a command called measure object. And then we're going to basically measure the property lookup time. And then we're going to get the minimum value, so minimum, the maximum value, and the average value. Now we also may want to get the total number of proofs found. So we can store this into a variable called proofs found and do the same thing as we did before. So we're going to do harvester events and then do measure object again. But this time we're going to do the property proofs found and then do sum instead of minimum and maximum and all that stuff. And then we're going to enclose this in parentheses so that we can dot source this property. So this will basically give us the value only and not a PowerShell object. We'll also want to get the ratio for our passing the filter, which on average each plot has a 1 in 512 chance of passing a plot or a challenge filter. So that equals to about 0.0019. So let's go ahead and add this property to the objects that we're exporting to the CSV. So let's call this filter ratio. And the way we can calculate this is basically dividing the eligible plots by the total number of plots that we had. So let's just copy this right here and divide it by the total number of plots, which is matches 6. So we will have to generate a new CSV file to have this property on those objects. But now that we have that property, we can now do a variable called pass filter. And basically what we're going to do is do a measure object again. So we're going to do harvester events, measure object, and this time we're going to do the property filter pass or filter ratio and do the average. Now again, this is the only property that we want, so we're going to close this in parentheses and then just type out average afterwards so that we only get the value and not the PowerShell object. So we pretty much have all the information that we want to create a very simple summary of our harvester activity. So let's go ahead and generate the message that we'll be sending to our notifications. So let's create a new variable called message, and then let's start creating it line by line. So let's first state how many attempted proofs are we looking at. So attempted proofs, and then we're basically going to count the number of objects in this. So let's enclose this and $ in parentheses and do count. And then let's go ahead and add another line, and we're going to do the plus sign and equal to append this string, and let's do lookup time stats. And then let's go ahead and create another new line, do plus sign and equals. And we'll actually need to add a new line character, which you can do with the backtick, which is the character right next to the 1, and you have to click shift. So backtick in So let's do backtick in here, and then let's do mid. And then here we're going to need to enclose it with the $, parentheses, and access the variable mid on this. So minimum, and then let's do max. So do dot maximum, and then let's do average. And now we have all the statistics for our lookup time. The last thing that we might want to add is the total number of proofs found and the filter ratio. So let's go ahead and create a new line and then type out filter ratio, and then we actually aren't accessing a property on this variable, so we can just type it out directly. So pass filter, and then let's get the total number of proofs found. So proofs, and again just type out proofs found. And now in order to test this before we send it to some type of notification system like Discord or Windows Toast notifications, let's just output it to the PowerShell console. And it is important to test out your script as you're writing it. As you can see here, I did make some mistakes, like I did not update the harvester event variable, so we need to actually type out harvester events equals harvester events where this is true. And then looking over again, I also had this misspelled, but I already went and fixed it. So besides adding the notification system, we are going to want to add the start sleep command after the if statement block, so that it gets run every 60 minutes. So we're going to do the seconds parameter and give it the interval and seconds variable. Now I have already updated the CSV file with the new property of the pass filter or the filter ratio. So let's go ahead and run this script in PowerShell. So if I do new Chia harvester with the default parameters, you can see that it generates a report. Now we might want to round this to maybe 2 or 3 decimal points to make it a little bit cleaner, but you can see that it's giving us valid results, and now it's waiting for another 60 minutes to pass before it runs again. So in order to give these a little bit nicer, rounder numbers, let's go ahead and go back to the script, and then we can use the math class. So do math, and then do the 2 colons to access a static property, and this will be round. And then basically we're going to enclose this in parentheses, and then do comma and give it the number of decimal places that we want to round to. So let's just round it to 4 decimal places. So if we save this again and run the script one more time, we can see that it gets round to 4 decimal places. And we can do this for the filter ratio as well. So now that we have this summary created, let's go ahead and create our notification, starting with the toast notification. So we can do this by using the if statement again and saying if toast notification switch was used, then run this script block. And we're going to install a module called the burnt toast notification module, and this will allow us to very easily create a toast notification in Windows. So in order to install this module, you're going to want to type out PowerShell and then right click it and run as administrator, and then just do install module. The repository is going to be PS gallery, and the name of the module is burnt toast. Go ahead and click enter. If it asks you about PS gallery being trusted or not, just go ahead and click Y and hit enter again. Now you can see that I already have the burnt toast module installed, so it's giving me this warning. So really all I need to do is update the module for any new update. So now that we have the module installed, let's go ahead and go back to our script file and then do new burnt toast notification. And basically we're just going to use a very simple toast notification doing text and then typing our message. And then let's go ahead and save that and run the script again. However, this time we're going to need to use our switch parameter for toast notifications. And then if we hit enter, we can see that we get a nice little notification right here. However, we do see that this got a little bit overflow, so maybe we need to reduce this to 3 decimal places instead of 4. And maybe we can add a picture rather than it being the default. So let's go ahead and exit out of this and go back to the script file. And in order to add a picture, we're going to do app logo. And then we need to give it a path to basically a PNG file that we want to give it. And so I've added the Chia Leaf PNG file to this directory, and we can access any file in this directory by doing ps script root, and now we just need to type out chialeaf.png. And then let me go ahead and make this a rounded number as well. Alright, now that we have all that taken care of, let's go ahead and run the script one more time. And here you can see that we have a nice little app logo. There is still a little bit of overflow, so we might need to round this maximum number to have it all on one line. Now the very last thing that we want to do is create the notification for Discord. Now Discord takes a little bit extra steps to set up, but essentially what you want to do is add a server, since as of right now I don't think there's a way to send direct messages to yourself. So just do create my own for me and my friends, and then name it whatever you want. So I'm going to name mine PS Chia Watchdog. Click create, and then from here you're going to want to probably change the server settings and basically change it to where no invitations can be created, since you don't really want anybody to be joining this server. Now after you've done that, you're going to want to go to integrations and then create webhook, and you're going to want to name this maybe also the same thing, PS Chia Watchdog. And then you're just going to click copy webhook, save changes. So now that we have this webhook, we're going to want to go back to our script file and create our notification for Discord. So we're going to do if Discord notification switch is turned on. Well, we're going to do a invoke REST method command. But first we're going to want to turn our message into a JSON file. So we're going to do payload equals, we're going to want to create a PowerShell custom object. So ps custom object, and then I'm going to make this into one line because it's only one property. So I'm going to delete all those new lines, and then we're going to want to name this content. Make sure that the C is lowercase because it is case sensitive, and then enter in your variable here. And then we're going to do convert to JSON so that it converts the payload to JSON. The next thing that we're going to want to do is do a method called invoke REST method. Now the URI is going to be our webhook, but first we're going to want to make the method post, and then the content type, I wish all these pop-ups would not be popping up, to I think it's application/JSON. So I was almost right, but it's a / instead of a \. The next thing that we want to do is the body parameter, which will be our payload. And then finally the URI, which is the webhook that we got from Discord. So we'll put those in double quotes. Let's go ahead and save this script file and then run it in PowerShell. Now this time we are going to want to do the switch parameter Discord notification, and if we hit enter, you can see that we get the toast notification, and then if we go to Discord, you can see that the message popped up there. Now you can see how easy it would be to add other integrations such as Slack or email by adding more switch statements and more if statements after you create the message or basically the report. Now this isn't supposed to be a full-fledged out Chia Watchdog in its current state, and more of a template that you can add to if you want it to have a very customizable watchdog. Now obviously you would want both of these scripts running at the same time, so you could have this script running in one PowerShell window and this one in another, or you could do start job, for example. And I just realized that after writing this entire script that this should be interval right here instead of 60. And you can see that I also forgot to add this little 4 for the rounding of the filter ratio. This is why you don't script when you are tired. But just to give an example of how you would run both of these scripts, you can start one using start job and then a script block, and just feed it the path of the first script that we wrote. And if you add this little and symbol, it will invoke that script if you give it the path. And then you can see that it continues to run in the background. Then next you can just run the second script that we wrote to generate the notification. And I'm just doing interval of 1 as an example, but here you can see that the notification does get generated, and it will continue to get generated every 1 minute. Now I hope this video was helpful. Again, this isn't supposed to be a full-fledged Chia Watchdog. I might add on to it in the future and make it a full-fledged module. But right now I just want to show you the basic steps to get it running, and then you can customize it as you need to. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them the best I can. Until next time, bye.